Hello, lovely. O is for occupants of your house. Who lives in your house? I will give you 4 reasons why it's brilliant to figure out exactly who lives in your house. So it's not just a beautiful house, but if you have an identity of who lives in there, it's much, much more interesting. And by nature of us doing our miniatures, we're a bit nosy, aren't we? Because we want to figure out who lives in a house. So if you think about a magazine spread, for instance, of a beautiful house, it can all be a little bit boring and a little bit bland because everything is just so perfect, if you like. When it's a little bit more messy or interesting and you just go, ooh, they like their gin, don't they? Or, ooh, satin sheets on the bed. Ooh, we're a bit nosy. We like to have a look around and try and figure out who lives in a house. But for us as the creatives, it is so much more interesting. That's one point. So much more interesting if we've actually figured out who lives in that house and we are injecting their personality into the house. And I have to say for myself, I'm much clearer about Maggie May's and the woman who lives in Maggie May's, who is Maggie May, rather than, say, Ashton Place and Bramble Cottage. I'm not quite so clear on the identities of the occupants there. That's sort of on a slow boil, which is why I've sort of put more energy into Maggie May's, because to me it is really absolutely crystal clear who she is, what she's about. Does she cook? Is there going to be a roast chicken in the kitchen? No, there is not going to be a roast chicken in the kitchen. Maggie May is trained in cordon bleu cookery. She went to a Swiss finishing school. She can cook. Blimey, can she cook? Does she cook? No. She'll go out to eat. Why would she want to cook at home? But she will do things like beans on toast when all the lads come round. And I'm talking about the lads, I'm talking about the rockers in the circles that she mixes with. Clapton, Harrison, Lennon, Bowie, they all come round, drink tea at the kitchen table, beans on toast or Heinz tomato soup or whatever, toast and jam. But she doesn't cook. No. And of course, while I'm name dropping, I must include Rodders. Rod Stewart, whose wonderful song Maggie May is my inspiration for this project. But remember, this is all fictional. This is all just make-believe, but from a little seed of thought, something can grow and expand and become whatever it is you want it to be. Please subscribe. Thank you so much. But she does like her satin sheets. She does like opulence. She does like comfort. She loves her French perfume. But some of the other rockers, they'll come and buy their things from the shop that she has. She was a rock chick in the 60s and still carrying on in the 70s. It's very much a 70s house. So it gives your house more personality, to know the personality of the person that lives there. It just makes it more interesting. Number 2, it makes it much more interesting for the viewer. If anybody comes and looks at your house or you shared pictures or whatever of it, it's much more interesting for the viewer to go, ooh. Now for me personally, I don't want a figure in my house. Some people do. I prefer not to. I prefer to keep Maggie's image as a bit of an illusion. We don't really know what she looks like. We could take a few guesses. Your guesses may be different to my guesses, but it doesn't really matter what she looks like. We'll see bits and pieces of hers in the house that will tell us we know her preferences from items of clothing, and we'll get clues from the way the lifestyle is lived in the house, in the Emporium. But we don't need to know exactly what she looks like. I think that's much more interesting for me personally. Although I have to say there are some fabulous characters out there that will give an identity to the house. From my perspective, or your perspective, if you're creating for your house, from my perspective, it is much more fun creating things for Maggie's, knowing Would Maggie have this in her house? No, that's not a Maggie thing. So when people comment on things on my videos, it's like, yeah, but Maggie wouldn't have that. It may be how some people would have their house, a traditional way or something, but it's not how Maggie has her house. No. I mean, the house itself, it's an old house, there are old features, but it's been chopped about. You know, the banisters have been taken down. Things are very different to how it would have been when it was the period property that it was originally. That's not how she lives in her house. It's much more eclectic, and you know, there are some nice pieces of furniture that she's inherited and picked up along the way. She clearly comes from money, but that's not how she lives her life. She's much more about upcycling a piece of furniture and having some dodgy paint jobs on furniture and having some tie-dye and, you know, random clashing 70s colours and stuff. And I know from the 60s going into the 70s, things went very brown and orange and avocado green and stuff like that. But she's a bit more funky and bright than that. She likes her bright pinks and bright oranges and yellows and stuff. And for the creator, for the me, or maybe for the you, if you're thinking about this for your house, it's so much easier to stay motivated and connected to the house if you've got an identity, because it just sparks that imagination and gets your creative juices going. I know a lot of people get stuck and stall with their houses. It's because they're not invested in it the same. And I know when I go back and do some more in Ashton Place, when I figured out the identity a little bit clearer of who lives in there, it really gives me more of an impetus and an enthusiasm to find things and make things for there, because I've got the identity clearer about who would live with that. It's sort of there, but it's sort of like about 40% there, whereas I'd like it to be 80-90% clarity of who lives there and their preferences and the time zone and the way they live. So the 4 points are, and I ask you to take these away with you and have a play with them and a think with your house. Easier to stay motivated, absolutely. Much more fun being creative for you. Gives the house much more personality and makes it, you know, more alive when you've got the identity of the owner shining through, and it much more interesting for the viewer. People may not see your house at all ever, but every time I go back and I open the front of Maggie's, and it's just like, oh, because I'm seeing it with fresh eyes. And that's why I really wanted to get the frontage on there pretty quickly, because it starts giving identity for me, but also then when I open it up, it's like, oh, when it's open, I'm staring at it all the time. It starts become so sort of familiar that I don't see it after a while. So I like to close it up, and that's why I've got some paper over the loft space there, the attic rooms, because I just want to keep those out of my mind for a time. I'm just focusing on the room that I'm doing at the time with whatever project, but it's fun and exciting and it is so rewarding. So if you haven't yet, figure out your occupants, who they are, how are they living in the house, and maybe, you know, write it all out if you want, or do a vision board or something, and you know, what are their likes, what are their dislikes, what sort of age they are, what's their background, what do they do for their holidays, what sort of food do they eat, what sort of income do they have, how do they earn their income, all those things. Take it as far as you want to go, as if you were writing a novel and you've got to find the character of your novel. Who are they? What makes them tick? What are their secrets? What are the mysteries? What are their loves of their life? All those sorts of things. Play with it, have fun with it, but it really helps you just put more flesh on the bones of the character, and it makes your house then different to everybody else's. Far more exciting, and it just maintains it as a hobby in a very different way to just accumulating the necessary and just furnishing it, because you're really putting life into it, and it's, to me, it's the icing on the cake of the adventure of it all. Anyway, I hope that helps, and I will talk to you very soon. Bye for now.